Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode where we dive deep into the ups and downs of learning something new. Now, let me ask, have you ever started a new skill only to feel totally overwhelmed or frustrated halfway through?
Oh, I think we've all been there, Adam. You know that moment when you're ready to toss your book or guitar out the window because it just feels impossible?
Exactly. Learning something new can be a real test of patience. But today, we're here to show you why patience isn't just helpful, it's essential. And of course, we'll share some tips on how to stay calm and committed, even when progress feels slow.
Because let's be real, we all want quick results. But sometimes, the best things take time. So whether you're learning a language, trying a new instrument, or picking up a new hobby, stick around. Today's episode is packed with advice on how to make patience your best friend on this journey.
All right, Sophia, let's talk about why patience is such a big deal when we're trying to learn something new. I mean, why can't we just skip to being good at it already?
Wouldn't that be amazing? But here's the thing, learning is like planting a tree. You can water it every day, but you won't see apples on it tomorrow morning, right?
So true. And think about it. How many of us have started something and then dropped it just because we didn't see progress fast enough?
Exactly. And that's where patience comes in. Without it, we're like that person at the gym expecting a six-pack after one workout. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work like that.
I've been there. But seriously, patience is what keeps us going through those nothing's happening phases. It's the ability to trust that each tiny effort adds up, even when we can't see it yet.
And patience actually reduces the frustration. Instead of getting mad because we're not fluent in a language after a month, we can appreciate the little wins, like remembering a few new words. Every step counts.
Right. Plus, patience is what lets us make mistakes and actually learn from them. I mean, think about it. Every time we mess up, it's like the universe giving us a little nudge. Hey, this is how you get better.
Exactly. Imagine if we never allowed ourselves to make mistakes. We'd be too scared to try anything new. Patience lets us say, it's okay. This mistake is just part of the process.
And here's the best part. Patience builds resilience. The more we stick with something, even when it's hard, the stronger we get mentally. That kind of strength is a game changer for life in general.
So true. And when we're patient, we stay consistent. A little effort every day gets us further than an all-out sprint once in a while. It's like taking small steps that eventually lead us up a mountain.
So, if you're learning a new skill, remember, patience isn't just helpful, it's essential. It's what turns all those little steps into big progress over time. So stick with it and trust the process. All right, Sophia, let's talk about the frustration phase. What I like to call the why am I even doing this phase. You know, that point in learning where you feel like no matter what you do, you're just not getting it. Have you been there?
Oh, way too many times. I think anyone who's tried learning something new knows that phase very well. It's that awkward middle ground where you're no longer a total beginner, but you're also nowhere near where you want to be.
Exactly. You know, I remember when I was trying to learn to play the guitar. At first, I was super motivated. I had visions of playing my favorite songs, strumming along at parties, everyone clapping. But after a few weeks, I hit a wall. Suddenly, I couldn't get even one chord right. My fingers hurt, and I sounded like I was wrestling with the guitar, not playing it.
I can picture that. And I've been there too. I was learning French a few years ago, and at first, I was so excited. I was memorizing words, practicing pronunciation, feeling like I was going to be fluent in no time. But then, I hit what I now call the Great Wall of Frustration. Suddenly, nothing made sense. I kept forgetting words, the grammar felt impossible, and I thought, why am I even doing this? I was this close to quitting.
Oh, that's exactly it. We all start with this burst of excitement, imagining ourselves as experts in no time. And then reality sets in, and we realize learning is hard work. And let's be real, this frustration can really suck the joy out of learning. It's like you know you want to get better, but every attempt feels like a failure. It's so tempting to just throw in the towel.
And that's where so many people give up. They think, if it's this hard, maybe I'm just not good at it, or maybe this skill isn't for me. But here's the thing. Frustration is a natural part of learning. In fact, it's a sign you're actually learning. I think a lot of people miss that.
Right. It's like our brains are rewiring, and that takes time. Every time we struggle, we're actually making new connections, building a foundation. It's just that we don't see the results right away, so it feels like we're not moving forward at all.
And frustration actually teaches us patience. If everything came easily, we'd never learn to persist. The skills that really matter, the ones we'll be proud of later, are the ones that force us to dig deep and keep going, even when we don't feel like it. Frustration builds resilience, and that's something we take with us long after we've learned the skill.
Absolutely. And think about it. Every time we push through that phase, we're training ourselves to be more resilient, more disciplined. I mean, take athletes, for example. They push through pain, exhaustion, setbacks, but those struggles are what separate a beginner from a pro.
Exactly. And here's another thing. Frustration also helps us learn from our mistakes. Each time we mess up, it's like the universe giving us feedback. Hey, here's something you can improve on. If we approach it with the right mindset, each mistake is a lesson, a tiny step closer to success.
I love that way of thinking about it. So instead of getting frustrated by mistakes, we can see them as a map, guiding us towards what we need to focus on. It's a shift in perspective, from I failed to I'm learning. That shift alone can make frustration so much easier to handle.
Exactly. It's about reframing the frustration. Instead of thinking, I'll never get this, we can think, this is hard because I'm doing something challenging. I'm getting stronger through this struggle. Just that small change in mindset can make all the difference.
And you know what's funny? Once we push through this frustration phase, we actually start to see breakthroughs. It's like all those messy, frustrating attempts suddenly click. I remember with my guitar playing, I went from sounding like I was attacking the guitar to actually strumming my first clear chord. And that moment was golden. It was the reward for all those painful hours of practice.
Yes, those breakthroughs are the best. And they feel even sweeter because we've worked so hard to get there. If it had been easy the whole time, we'd probably just shrug it off. But because we've faced and overcome challenges, that success feels real. It's earned.
Totally. So I guess what we're saying here is, to everyone listening, frustration is not your enemy. It's proof that you're pushing your limits, growing and challenging yourself. It might feel like a dead end, but it's actually a sign that you're right where you need to be.
Yes. So if you're in that phase right now, remember, you're not alone. This frustration is part of the journey for anyone learning something meaningful. Stick with it, push through, and remember that every little struggle is bringing you closer to your goal.
So, don't let frustration stop you. Embrace it, even if it's uncomfortable. Because at the end of that frustration is the growth and skill you've been working so hard for.
And just know, we're here rooting for you. Stay strong, keep pushing through, and one day, you'll look back on this phase and be so proud you didn't give up.
All right, Sophia. We've talked about why patience is essential and how frustration is just part of the journey. But let's get into the real question. How do we actually develop patience when it feels like we're getting nowhere?
Great question, Adam. And honestly, developing patience is like working out a muscle. It takes practice, but it can get stronger. One technique I swear by is setting mini goals. When I'm learning something new, I break it down into tiny achievable steps. Instead of focusing on I want to be fluent in Spanish, I focus on I want to learn 10 new words today. It's way less overwhelming.
That's smart. It keeps the goal manageable, and every time you reach one of those mini goals, you get a little boost of motivation. I think of it as stacking small wins. Each mini goal is a win, and those wins keep us going.
Exactly. And speaking of motivation, here's another one. Celebrate small victories. People often wait for the big achievements to celebrate, but every small win is progress. I mean, if I nail a phrase or get through a tricky section of a new skill, I take a minute to appreciate it. It helps me feel like I'm moving forward.
Yes! Celebrating even the tiniest steps reminds us that we're actually making progress. Another technique I use is something I call the patience pause. When I feel myself getting impatient, I literally pause, take a deep breath, and remind myself, This is just one step in a long journey. It sounds simple, but that pause can really help me reset.
I love that. And you know, the pause is actually backed by science. Taking a few deep breaths slows down our brain, eases stress, and helps us feel more in control. It's like we're grounding ourselves in the moment.
Definitely. And here's another powerful one. Shift your focus to the process instead of the outcome. When I'm learning something new, if I only think about the end goal, like becoming fluent or mastering a skill, it feels far away and frustrating. But if I focus on enjoying each practice session, each step, it's easier to stay patient.
That's so true. I remind myself that learning is the journey. The point isn't to rush to the end, but to enjoy every step and what it teaches us. And this is where journaling can come in handy too. If I'm feeling frustrated or stuck, I'll jot down my thoughts, my mini successes, or even the struggles. Seeing it all on paper helps me realize how far I've come.
That's a great idea. Journaling gives us perspective because when we look back, we can see the progress we've made. And speaking of perspective, here's a big one. Embrace the mindset of a lifelong learner. Instead of thinking of it as, I have to be perfect at this right now, think, I'm learning and I'll keep learning. It takes the pressure off.
Absolutely. Lifelong learners know there's no finish line. There's just continuous growth. That's actually how experts think. They stay curious and know there's always room to improve. Adopting that mindset helps us stay patient with where we're at.
Exactly. And here's a fun technique I use. Turn it into a game. Sometimes I'll challenge myself by setting little tasks within the skill I'm learning. Like, if I'm learning to cook, I'll see if I can make a dish in less time or try it with fewer ingredients. It makes learning playful and I forget about being impatient.
Yes. Making it a game adds fun and takes away the stress of being perfect. It keeps you engaged and makes the learning process more enjoyable. One more technique I'd add is find a learning buddy. Having someone on the same journey makes everything feel more achievable. You can share frustrations, celebrate wins, and encourage each other to keep going.
I love that. A learning buddy keeps you accountable and reminds you that you're not alone in the process. So to everyone listening, patience isn't just about waiting, it's about actively engaging with the process. Try out these techniques, set mini goals, celebrate wins, take that patience pause, enjoy the process, journal, adopt a lifelong learner mindset, make it a game, and find a buddy.
Exactly. Each of these techniques helps you stay steady, focused, and motivated. And remember, the journey of learning something new is meant to be a bit challenging. So be kind to yourself, practice patience, and enjoy the growth.
Trust the journey, stay patient, and remember, each step, no matter how small, is getting you closer to mastering that skill. All right, Sophia, we've talked about the frustration of learning and building patience, but there's something else that holds people back, the fear of failure. Ever felt that fear creeping in?
Oh, definitely. I think anyone who's tried learning something new has felt it. It's that voice in the back of your mind saying, what if I mess up? What if I'm just not good at this? I remember when I first started public speaking, I was terrified. I thought, what if I forget everything and make a fool of myself? That fear of failure was so intense, I almost didn't go through with it.
Oh, I hear you. That fear is so powerful. It makes us think that if we fail, it's proof that we're not capable. But the truth is, failure is a huge part of learning. Think about it. Almost every expert, every person who's great at something, has failed countless times.
Yes. And here's the thing. Failure isn't final. We often treat it like the end of the road, but it's really just a stepping stone. It's feedback, showing us what we need to work on to get better. I always say, fail forward. Every time we mess up, we're actually learning something valuable.
I love that. Fail forward. If we could all see failure as just another part of the process, it would be so much less intimidating. I mean, look at people like Thomas Edison. He failed hundreds of times trying to invent the light bulb, and each failure just brought him one step closer to success.
Exactly. Imagine if he'd given up after the first, 10th, or even 100th attempt. And that's the mindset we need to adopt. Failure isn't a sign to stop. It's a sign to keep going with a little more knowledge than we had before.
Right. And sometimes, fear of failure is just fear of judgment. We're so worried about what others might think if we mess up that we hold ourselves back. But here's a reality check. Most people are so focused on their own lives, they're not paying as much attention as we think. And those who succeed are the ones who don't let fear stop them.
So true, Adam. And when we embrace failure as part of growth, it becomes so much easier to take risks. You know, one thing I do is to treat each attempt like an experiment. Instead of, I must succeed, I tell myself, let's see what happens. It shifts the mindset from fear to curiosity.
I love that. Approaching it as an experiment. It makes the whole process feel less pressured. And here's another tip for our listeners. Remember that small failures don't define you. If you stumble while learning, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means you're in the middle of the journey.
Exactly. Failure is just a part of the story, not the whole story. And you know what? The more we embrace small failures, the more resilient we become. We start to see them as normal, and that takes away so much of the fear.
Right. And resilience is one of the best skills we can develop. So to everyone listening, let go of the fear of failure. See it as a necessary part of learning and growth. Each time you face it, you're growing stronger and getting closer to success.
Yes, remember the real failure is not trying at all. Take those leaps, stumble a bit, learn from it, and keep going. Embrace failure as a friend, not a foe, and watch how much further you go.
And we'll be right here, cheering you on through every setback, every win, and every lesson. Keep moving forward, because the only real failure is giving up. All right, Sophia, we've talked about everything from patience to fear of failure. But you know, sometimes what really sticks are real-life examples, stories that show us it's possible to push through. Do you have any stories that come to mind?
Absolutely, Adam. I think real-life examples are so powerful. One story that inspires me is about J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter. She faced rejection 12 times before a publisher accepted her manuscript. She was living in tough conditions, but she didn't let failure define her. Instead, she kept pushing through those no's until she finally heard a yes. Imagine if she had given up after the first or even 10th rejection.
Wow, that's such a powerful example. She believed in her story, and now look, Harry Potter is one of the most successful book series ever. And I think what stands out there is her resilience. Each rejection didn't stop her, it just made her more determined.
Exactly, and here's another one. Michael Jordan. A lot of people don't know this, but he was actually cut from his high school basketball team. Can you imagine that? He could have let that failure define him, but he used it as motivation to train harder. That setback fueled his success, and now he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time.
That's amazing. And it just goes to show that sometimes failure is just setting us up for a bigger success. It's easy to see only the highlights of successful people, but when you dig deeper, you see how much they had to push through to get there.
Yes, and it's not just famous people either. I had a friend who wanted to become a software developer, but he wasn't good at math, which made him feel like he'd never make it. He was frustrated and almost quit. But instead of giving up, he dedicated just 30 minutes every day to practice. Slowly but surely, he started seeing improvement. It took him years to get to where he wanted, but now he's working at a tech company and doing what he loves.
That's such a great example. And I think what's important there is the power of consistent effort, even if it's just a little each day. Your friend turned what could have been a failure into a story of growth just by sticking with it.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people underestimate the power of small, consistent efforts. They think, if I'm not progressing fast, I must be failing. But it's those small steps that add up over time. Just like your friend, the people who succeed aren't necessarily the ones who learn the fastest. They're the ones who don't give up.
Right. And you know, that reminds me of my own experience learning guitar. I was terrible at it at first. I could barely move my fingers across the strings. I felt like I'd never get the hang of it. But I kept practicing, just a little bit every day. And eventually the progress came. It was slow, but looking back, I can see how far I've come.
That's awesome, Adam. And it's so relatable because so many people feel that same frustration when they start something new. But your story shows that if you push through those rough patches, you can really surprise yourself.
Exactly. And I think for everyone listening, these stories remind us that we're not alone in our struggles. Whether you're learning a new skill or pursuing a big goal, remember that it's okay to struggle. Some of the most successful people in the world faced big setbacks. The key is to keep moving forward.
And every story of success is built on a foundation of persistence, patience, and growth. So when you feel like giving up, remember these examples. Whether it's J.K. Rowling, Michael Jordan, or even just a friend or family member who kept going. They didn't achieve success overnight, and neither do we.
Exactly. We're all on our own journey, but these stories show us what's possible if we don't let fear and frustration hold us back. So, to everyone listening, think of one small step you can take today toward your goal, and keep going. Remember, every success story started with someone just like you, someone who simply didn't give up.
Yes, believe in yourself, embrace the journey, and know that every setback is just a stepping stone toward your growth. The struggle is part of the story that makes success that much sweeter.
And that's what we're here for. To remind you that with patience, resilience, and a willingness to push through, you can achieve those big dreams. Just keep going. So, Sophia, we've gone through the struggles, the frustration, the fear, and the perseverance. But there's one last part that makes it all worth it: the payoff of patience. I think it's safe to say that all that effort and waiting can lead to some pretty incredible results, don't you?
Absolutely, Adam. And that's really the beauty of it, isn't it? When we finally reach that breakthrough moment, it feels like all the time, effort, and patience were leading us somewhere meaningful. It's like reaching the top of a mountain after a challenging hike. You look back, and suddenly every tough moment feels worth it.
Yes, and there's something powerful about that transformation. Think of the skills we develop by going through the process: resilience, persistence, even self-belief. We realize we're capable of so much more than we initially thought. It's as though every small act of patience built a version of ourselves we couldn't have become otherwise.
So true. And the interesting thing is, the patience itself becomes part of the reward. By sticking with something, we're not only reaching a goal, we're building our own inner strength. For example, anyone who learns a new language knows that feeling. At first, every word is a struggle, but when you finally start to understand conversations or express yourself freely, it's like unlocking a new world.
Right. And that sense of achievement, of finally seeing progress, is something no one can take away from you. It's not just the skill, it's the confidence that grows along with it. I remember when I was learning to code, I kept hitting wall after wall, and it felt endless. But when I finally built my first app, I felt unstoppable. That sense of achievement was something I had earned by pushing through.
That's such a great example, Adam. And that feeling isn't just a one-time thing. Once we've experienced the payoff of patience in one area, it becomes easier to apply that mindset in other areas of our lives. We start believing, if I could overcome that, then I can tackle this too. It's like each win makes us a little stronger, a little braver.
Exactly. And I think for everyone listening, that's the key takeaway. Patience doesn't just lead to results, it transforms us. We become people who know how to handle challenges, who don't give up when things get hard. And that's the kind of growth that impacts every part of life.
And it's important to remember that sometimes the real payoff isn't just reaching the end goal, but realizing how much we've grown along the way. It's the difference between being able to do something and truly mastering it. The journey itself reshapes us.
Yes, and that journey is something to be proud of. For anyone feeling stuck or impatient, think about where you'll be 6 months or a year from now if you keep going. Imagine the skills you'll have, the confidence you'll gain, and the sense of fulfillment that comes from knowing you didn't give up.
Beautifully put, Adam. So, to everyone listening, when the journey feels slow, remember this: the payoff of patience isn't just what you achieve, but who you become along the way. And sometimes, That transformation is the biggest reward of all.
Couldn't have said it better, Sophia. So let's all embrace the process, trust in our growth, and keep moving forward. Because every bit of patience we put in today builds a stronger, more resilient version of ourselves for tomorrow.
Yes, keep pushing, keep believing, and remember, the payoff is coming, and it's going to be worth every moment of patience you put into it.
As we wrap up today's episode, Sophia, I think it's clear that patience is truly a game changer when it comes to learning new skills.
Absolutely, Adam. We've explored how the journey is often filled with frustration and setbacks, but those moments can lead us to incredible growth and achievement. So, let's recap some key takeaways for our listeners.
Great idea. First, remember that patience is essential. Learning anything new takes time, and it's important to give yourself grace during the process.
Yes. Next, embrace the frustration phase. Accepting the struggles as part of your learning journey makes it easier to stay committed. It's okay to feel challenged. It's a sign you're pushing your boundaries.
And don't forget to develop techniques to cultivate patience. Whether it's mindfulness, setting small goals, or finding a supportive community, every little bit helps.
Right. And address that fear of failure head on. Remember, failure is not the end. It's a stepping stone toward your success. Each mistake brings you closer to mastering your skill.
Finally, look at the payoff of patience. The journey is just as important as the destination. Celebrate your small wins and recognize how far you've come.
Exactly. So, to everyone listening, take these tips to heart. Remember that every expert was once a beginner, and with patience, persistence, and practice, you can achieve your goals.
Thank you all for joining us today. We hope this conversation has inspired you to embrace patience in your learning journey. Don't forget to share your experiences with us. We'd love to hear your stories of perseverance.
See you next time. Thank you.